Hi and welcome to this week's GMBN Tech Show. Coming up on the show we have the new Manitou Dorado fork. That's an inverted twin crown carbon fibre beast. We also check out what's going on over at Atherton Bikes. There's some great regulars from you GMBN Techers and a really handy tool, especially if you're a bit of a tool aficionado or a mechanic. Okay, so diving into the show this week, we're going to have a look at the subject of, are mountain bike forks the wrong way up? Are they upside down? So the mountain bike fork as we know it looks like this. So you've got the big part at the bottom, that's called the slider. So that's basically two outer legs or lower legs with a brace that attaches, or an archway that attaches them together for steering rigidity. The upper tubes, which are known as the stanchions, that go into the crown. But on motorbikes, you might have noticed that they tend to be the other way up. Now, we actually call these inverted or upside down forks, which is kind of funny because they were here first. So actually our mountain bike forks the wrong way up. Now, let's talk a little bit about inverted forks and why you don't see them on mountain bikes quite as much. Now, the inverted fork design, you have the bigger tubes at the top. So arguably you can have a fork that's much stiffer and much more controllable because of the fact that you've got these big supported twin crowns adjusted and holding those bigger upper tubes. So under braking, fore and aft, under big impacts, hitting the bike from the front and this sort of direction when you're landing from jumps and stuff, arguably the fork can be much stiffer and do its job better. And then of course you've got the heavier bit of the fork at the top as well, the bigger pieces at the top. So your ratio of sprung to unsprung mass is technically it's better on an inverted style fork because of that. The downside though with having an inverted style fork is the fact that on a mountain bike at least, it's very hard to keep them stiff enough on the bottom in a torsional way because of the fact the axle system has to be very smart to get around this because of the fact you can't overbuild it like you would on a motorbike design. So let's face it, weight isn't the most important thing on a motorbike, whereas on a mountain bike you've got to pedal the thing, you've got to roll it along, so any way you can cut weight off is going to be better. Now arguably on a mountain bike the reason that they chose to put forks the wrong way up, the way that we know is the correct way up, was really to start with in the original days because you need to get the brakes on somewhere because there's nowhere to mount the brakes because early bikes didn't have disc brakes. Of course the disc brake doesn't matter where you mount it because you've got the lower part of the fork, you know, it moves with the wheel. But you think what's going on with a telescopic fork, if it's an inverted style design you couldn't mount the brake on there because the brake would go up and down. Now there was a fork called the Howson inversion fork which was an inverted style design and it had holes where the brake posts actually poked out through those upper legs where they mounted to the lower legs. Enabling you to use a regular sort of cantilever style brake. But that's really where the design came from originally, and then we just kind of stuck with it because it was the easiest way to make the fork stiff enough because we didn't use through axles at the time, we had quick release axles on the fork. So if you look how weedy some of the early suspension forks are, it's kind of an interesting concept. But there's some really cool things you can do with an inverted fork design. Of course you can have a nice and stiff at the top, which is great. Also means that the fork, technically on paper, they're going to work better for longer and they're going to be very, very slick and slippery because of the fact that the oil sits around the stanchions there, around the seals and around the bushings, way more so than it would do with another fork. It requires a sort of a capillary action to keep the oil in place, to keep those seals lubricated. Obviously, on an inverted bike, because it's upside down, it sits on them. You could also argue that the correct way up that we actually use, which is technically the wrong way up, is a worse design because the fact mud and stuff is just firing at the seals constantly, whereas an inverted design, it would just slide away from them. So technically they're better on paper, but we don't see them that much because they're much harder to manufacture. But some people can still do it right. We can have a look at the Manitou in news, and let's not forget those beautiful Intend forks because they do it right. But what I want to know is, do you think the inverted design should be called upside down, or should the current design that we all know as the right way up should be known as the wrong way up, or an inverted design? Interesting concept. And do you even like inverted designs in the terms of the bigger part at the top and the smaller part at the bottom? Just curious to know what you think. Interesting thing just to talk about there because you don't see them much and you always look at them and go, oh, that looks like a motorbike fork, they look rad. I love them. I think inverted style telescopic forks look so good. I kind of wish you'd have them more, actually, rather than what we know as a mountain bike fork, to be honest. Okay, so into news now, and the first thing is 100% or Ride 100% have a new model of the aircraft helmet. So the aircraft 2, obviously the second iteration of it. This is it on screen. I think you'll probably agree with me. It looks really, really nice. Now, full face helmets have undergone a transformation over the years. The earliest models were pretty ropey, to be honest. They looked kind of horrible just as a safety feature, whereas now, modern full face helmets look really, really cool. They're very safe and secure to work, and they look great. And I actually credit Troy Lee Designs with some of the styling points. They were leagues ahead of everyone when they made that Daytona helmet, and kind of everyone's been playing catch up since. But this new helmet from 100%, I think this could well be the nicest of the lot at the moment. Now, I actually saw this helmet custom painted on Sam Hill, EWS 1 and 2, without even realising it. Eagle-eyed Rich Payne over on GMBN, he was like, I'm sure something's different on that helmet. Either he's got like a fin on the back, or the shape's different, but neither of us could figure it out really in the flesh, because it's hard to see with his custom paint job. Turns out Isabel Kajuri was using it, and of course Reece Wilson's been using them as well. It's a rad looking lid, and some details about it. So it's a brand new helmet, massive airflow, as you might have got from the aircraft name. It's not for flying aircraft in, it's about the aircraft and the way it works. 20 oversized ventilation ports, and they are huge vents as well, really pulls air over your head. It's got a Smart Shock rotational injury prevention system built on the inside there to help basically prevention against rotational style injuries, those oblique injuries that can have the helmet twist rapidly on your head. It's a dual density EPS liner on the inside there, so it takes care of the smaller bumps as well as big bumps, because as we know, any bump to the head is certainly not good. We've been educated on this a lot in modern years, more recent times especially. It's been some pretty bad stories, so anything that can offer more protection, that is a win in my books. 2 size specific molds, so you've got the small, medium and the large, extra large. So there's 2 shells essentially, and then within that they fit the different size helmets there. Retails for $400 US. I think that's a good price for safety. Now, if you consider, bear in mind that the Troy Lee D4's a bit older now. When it came out, it was about $575 US. So $400 today for a helmet like this in carbon fibre with this amount of protection, I think it's a winner. I think it looks really, really cool. Incidentally, I actually think this one does look like one of the coolest lids at the moment. What is the coolest looking full face helmet on the market? Let us know in the comments underneath. Yeah, cool. Right, next up, the Manitou Dorado is back. So the inverted fork, that is the stanchion tubes at the bottom, and the sliders, the bigger part of the tube, the big clamp surface, is up at the top there. This is it on screen. Just look at the thing. It just looks like a motocross fork. It looks absolutely amazing. Better than it's ever looked, I have to say. Love those protectors down at the bottom there, the guards for the stanchions. Oh man, just look at it. It looks great. So there's 3 models. There's going to be loads more shots flying by on screen here. So there's a Pro, an Expert and a Comp. So the Comp model, going from the cheapest upwards here. The Comp is actually a coil sprung fork, and it's got an alloy upper tube set on there. The Expert also has alloy uppers on there, but it's air, and both the Expert and the Comp with those alloy uppers are e-bike certified. The Pro model is carbon fibre uppers though, so a bit lighter, a bit more refined, not e-bike certified, and that one is also air sprung. 37mm stanchions on there. So it was 36mm previously, and they've upped it to 37, but they haven't jumped to like 38 or to even to 40 because they say they haven't needed to. They found the optimum combo of strength, rigidity, that torsional flex. You do need an element of flex. If you get the fork really stiff fore and aft and it has a tiny bit of flex, actually you get traction from that, you get compliance. They're all good things. So yeah, it's got plenty of that. Manitou say the blend of the increased fore and aft stiffness and lateral compliance improves steering accuracy and traction whilst simultaneously reducing rider fatigue. So there you go. And this new 37mm, the carbon platform anyway, they say is 27% stiffer fore and aft and 22% stiffer torsionally than the previous 36 model. That is pretty stiff, although apparently the last one was fairly flexy. So it sounds good to me. Now there's 2 models within these. There's a 27.5 and 29-inch model, and there's 2 sets of crowns to go with those. So the 27.5-inch crowns have a different offset on them, and they are flat crowns. The 29-inch crowns have a dropped top crown there to keep the sort of axle to crown ratio the same on them, but you can fit the 27.5-inch crowns on them. So there's a bit of sort of modification you can do to tweak with the offset available on them. On the insides, they have the TPC Plus cartridge. That is a twin piston chamber technology, an all-in-one cartridge, works incredibly well, and it has 3 major forms of damping adjustment on there. You have high and low speed compression, and you have rebound. Now this is a confusing thing. So on a traditional fork or shock, universally across the market, you'll have red as the rebound and blue as the compression. And on a fork, you'll have compression at the top and you'll have rebound on the bottom. But this is an inverted fork. So you have the rebound at the top and the compression at the bottom, and the rebound is blue and the compression is red. Yeah, that's confusing, isn't it? Still looks really good, and I'm sure it works really well. And hey, it's different, I don't mind that, but something to think about if you do have them, because it could throw you out a bit. And so the pricing on the forks. Okay, so the 3 models, going from the top, the Dorado Pro, $1,799 US. The Expert in the middle one, $1,449, and the Comp, $1,224 US there. Great to see them back. I'd love to see a load of these out in the wild. I think they look really good. And Manitou have quietly been chiseling away, really bringing back the quality they used to have. I think it looks great. What do you think? Inverted forks like this, do you think cool or not? Let us know in those comments. Okay, next up, Intense Prototype. This one belongs to Chris Kovarik. In fact, this is actually from his Instagram page. If you don't follow him, follow him. The guy is just unbelievable on a bike, and this is a very cool prototype that belongs to him. So it's a Tracer, as far as we know, size large. It's got an incredibly steep seat angle. It looks like it's probably nearly 77 degrees on there, like very steep. Always hard to tell at different angles on photos. 170mm travel front and rear, and it's running it mullet style or mixed wheel style. So the smaller 27.5 on the rear and the bigger 29 on the front. Pretty much called mullet through the industry. Everyone sort of refers to it just loosely on that term. It looks really cool. I love the fact that Intense constantly do this with prototypes. They've got a distinct look with their prototype bikes, almost Jeff Stieber's take on a sort of dazzle print you used to see on military aircraft and all sorts of stuff to try and confuse you from what was going on with the actual thing in question. Very cool stuff. Keep your eye out on the Intense Bikes Instagram page for more information coming on that at some point. Next up, Atherton Bikes. They've taken hold of their Renishaw additive manufacturing machine at last. Now, G was telling me about this when he visited us, I think it was last year now, I lose track of time, when he brought down the bikes and the lugs and all the cool stuff to show us. And he did tell us that they wanted to bring all the manufacturing, instead of having to go to Renishaw, to basically get hold of some of the machines and do it themselves on site. And now they can do it. So I suspect you're going to be able to start seeing some Atherton bikes popping up soon at long last. I really want to go and see that in working order. I really want to see it. I want to try one of the bikes for starters, but I really want to see that working up on their own turf. I want to see how their business runs. I think it's really, really interesting. Atherton family, hello. I will come and see you at some point. Okay, quiz time now. 3 questions coming at you. First one on the screen. Which of the following bike models did Rocky Mountain not make? The Blizzard, Avalanche, or Thunderbolt? Have a think about that one. Think about the name, Rocky Mountain. There could be some clues in there. DT famously make hubs that have a ratchet drive system on them. Which other brand has a very, very similar system? In fact, I have made a video on GMBN Tech talking about this brand before and this system. Let us know what you think. And finally, the Manitou Sherman, following on a bit of a Manitou vein here, was a single crown freeride fork that came out in around 2002. What was so special about the steerage tube on it? Pick up the answers a bit later. So first one on the screen right here. As you can see, just look at this. So loads of OSB everywhere. This is Stewart in Peebles, Scottish Borders, arguably one of the finest places in the UK to ride. Amazing, amazing valley of riding up there. So good. So Stewart's got a white S150 CR and a white T130. Both absolutely great bikes there. It says my bike cave, bike storage for my bike and the wife's, also the kids' bikes, bike stand, compressor, workbench with vise, tool wall and park tools. And loads more tools by the looks of it. So you've got your power tools over on the left there, you've got Makita. I do like Makita myself. Spent quite a lot of money on their stuff over the years, to be honest. Lovely workbench you've got going on there. Bit of a heater set up, dual heater on the underneath it looks like. I guess it's probably quite cold up there. Henry the Hoover down on the bottom there to get rid of your workshop waste, and a really cool, quite like a sort of a locker and toolboard setup in one there. I'm wondering why some of your tools are still in the packets though. I guess if you've just bought them, then that's an acceptable excuse, but get them out and hang them on the wall. Good to see that you've got loads of good stuff in there. Fork oil in there, stands, WD-40, disc brake cleaner, all that sort of stuff. I can see mark-off, I can see various thread locks, some sort of assembly compounds, all sorts of stuff, even SRAM butter. So it looks like you're fairly sort of affluent as far as, looks like you're fairly capable as far as looking after your bike goes, judging by the stuff you've got in here. Great selection of tools as well. Good to see. I like your roll cab as well, with the old school tool chest on the top there, and your number plates on the wall. Yeah, great setup in there. What else you got? And there's the kids' bikes down the bottom, RockShox banner, helmets on the wall. There's your compressor. Hey, this is a wicked setup, Stuart. Really, really good to see this. Okay, so next one then. This one's called, wow, there are some number plates in here. So this is from Hayden in Brisbane. DIY cave, 7 bikes, workshop, gym, memorabilia, all in one. My girlfriend and I both ride, so it was imperative for us to have a functional space to store and work on our bikes. Yep, you don't have to tell me that. Bikes are Giant TCR, Canyon Endurance CF, Giant Rain 29, Norco Sight, Norco Revolver, Banshee Amp, Common Sight Absolute. Wow, you've got a serious selection of bikes there. Memorabilia is primarily old race plates and awards. Professional motocross jerseys, framed photos. Dude, it looks awesome. I really like the setup here. I love the fact that it's like a number plate board and a tool board all in one. That's a really cool idea. I didn't want to do that originally in my workshop because of the fact I've got my big tool cabs, but I'm very limited on space, and I am considering changing this entire back wall behind me and basically having a tool board on the wall to get that space back and use in another way. And I like what you've done there. It's kind of like the art and the tools all at once. There's definitely food for thought there. I love the message on the stand. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Not always that way though, is it? I know it is mostly. But yeah, very cool. Serious amount of number plates there. Really impressive. Clearly you're both really into your racing and riding. Great to see. Moto jerseys are ace. You've got your kettlebells there, you've got your bench, got all the good stuff. Hey, this is a wicked setup. Really like it. Nice. Loads of jerseys there and the artwork. Yeah, it looks awesome, mate. It's well good. Feels like I could spend a lot of time in there. That's what Bike Cave should be all about. If you've got a cool Bike Cave, please do send it in to us. The link is right here. There's another one down there that you can click on and it'll take you through to our uploader. Tell us about yourself, tell us about what's in your Bike Cave, and tell us what you love about bikes and stuff. And hopefully we'll put you on the show. And now it's time for top mods. If you've got any modifications you've done to your bikes, let us know. Could be anything. Could be handlebar grips, could be a kid seat, could be literally anything. Anything goes. There's a link right there, another one in the comments underneath there. Click through, bash in the keyboard, tell us all about yourself. Now check this one out. This is a bike with a bike as a trailer. This is cool, and I see what you've done here, Walter. So this is Walter in Switzerland. After developing the Fantic Issimo bike from a city/cappuccino bike to a usable all-terrain bike, I was in search for a possibility to transport my jump bike to the tarmac pump track, which is 15 kilometers away from me. I see what you're doing here. So you've got your e-bike essentially, and yeah, 15 kilometers on a jump bike is not that much fun on your knees, is it? Yeah, so this is a great idea. Essentially a trailer to ride your jump bike to the jump bike park. What a great idea. I'm pretty sure I've seen a modification like this on a scooter, as in like a motor scooter rather than a pedal power or pedelec type bike before. And I thought it was a really cool idea. I'd have no idea if it's road legal or not. Does anyone know about that stuff? Let us know in the comments if anyone's seen anything. I seem to remember Blake and his brother making some kind of contraption for carrying bikes on the back of motorbikes, and they did a trip to like Barcelona or somewhere before his time here at GMBN. That was a really cool video. In fact, you'll probably find it if you look for it online. That's worth a watch. Yeah, great stuff. Really cool to see. Like, I love the idea. Great concept. Take your jump bike out for a ride, but you're riding, getting to where you're going to ride it. That makes sense. Kind of cool, isn't it? Okay, next one is from Sylvia in Germany. Hi, I've transformed 2 old Cannondales V700s into 27.5-inch modern cross-country bikes. One is full Shimano XT and the other full XTR. Oh, dude, you've dropped some serious cash on these. Let's have a look at them on screen now. In my eyes, they are epic. If they'll be ahead, I'll send you more epic builds I've done. Yes, please do. We love seeing epic builds from people. I'm a big Cannondale fan. I've said this before. They're one of those brands that has the thing. You can't place what it is. Like Yeti have got it. Cannondale have got it. Do you know what I mean? They have that thing. So on screen, you can see the fatty decals on the fork. So this is quite a cool concept. Cannondale actually put the shock, they called it head shock, inside the head tube of the bike. So this is when telescopic forks weren't too good. So they were thinking of a way to make a fork more efficient. It had needle bearings, so there was no stiction, super, super active. Everything in one place, and it had a regular sort of fork on the bottom, so it's nice and stiff. Brilliant approach, but it had to be a Cannondale bike, of course, because it was Cannondale bike, Cannondale head tube and fork incorporated. And apparently they're a bit of a pain to work on, mechanically speaking, but they were quite well sealed. So if you looked after them, they'd treat you well, but when you did need to work on them, a bit spendy. Great stuff though, and look at those XTR levers, they blend in really nicely to the paint job on there. It kind of looks a bit like an angry wasp, doesn't it? And that's all black with the yellow. I think it's awesome. Great bikes. I'd ride one of those now. I think it looks really cool. Super V 700. Super nice, dude. Thank you so much for sending those in. I love seeing this sort of stuff on the show. Please do keep them coming in. Right then, quiz time. Let's pick up the answers, shall we? So, first question was, which of the following bike models did Rocky Mountain not make? So we had the Blizzard, the Avalanche, and the Thunderbolt. Did you get it? It's the Avalanche. They did not make a bike called the Avalanche. GT made a bike called the Avalanche, had a triple triangle design on the frame, which was their kind of iconic thing. GT had that triple triangle. As to whether there was any advantage of it, I'm not so sure about that, but it looked cool as anything, and you knew it was a GT. It had made a million people want to buy a GT bike. Very cool stuff. DT famously make hubs that use a ratchet ring system. Which other wheel manufacturer makes a very similar system? Now, I wasn't looking at Chris King here, by the way, because their one is different, because it's got a worm drive system to make them engage. Get it? It was Mavic. Mavic made the system called the ID360. I actually made a video all about the Mavic system. If you've not seen it, it's a bit of history about Mavic as a company. Have a watch. It's a pretty good nerd out, even if I do say so myself. If you ignore my presenting, you just look at the information in there, I think it's a pretty solid video. But the ID360 system, very similar to the DT one, in the fact it's got ratchet rings that are essentially, they're always almost fully engaged. Wicked system. Single spring on there though, rather than the twin spring system as you see on the DT wheels. And the last question was, the Manitou Sherman was a single crown freeride fork that came to market in around 2002. What was so special about the steerer tube on it? Anyone get it? It was 1.5, the 1.5 standard, or 1.5 inches in diameter. It was huge. Yeah, so it was a massive steerer tube, incredibly stiff, and opened up the potential for both Manitou and RockShox, so you had the Totem, to have long travel single crown forks that were as stiff, if not stiffer actually, than some twin crown forks, which used a straight inch and an eighth steerer tube at the time. The problems were, they were actually so stiff, they were borderline uncomfortable in some cases. Frames had to have these massive Coke can style head tubes on them, which at the time looked really out of place because the rest of the bikes hadn't really grown proportionally to that. And of course you had to have massive stems on them and more bearings at the top than you needed. So in time, frame designers and fork designers sort of looked at them and thought, well, all the rigidity and the stiffness you need is actually at the bottom. So they kept the 1.5 at the bottom and tapered that steerer tube to inch and an eighth at the top. So best of both worlds. So you've got your lighter, smaller, nicer looking, more familiar upper part of the headset and the forks there in the frame, and a bigger lower race there for all the support that you need for that 4.5 stiffness under braking and landing from big jumps, all that sort of stuff. And that's basically what we have now. Although you are starting to see 1.8 inch creeping in on the lower there on some e-bikes for even more support for, let's face it, a much heavier bike that probably needs it. So I do suspect you might start to see 1.8 at some point creeping in a bit more on bigger travel single crown bikes, because, well, it kind of makes sense to support the fork in that way. Right, well, enough waffling from me. That's the end of this week's show. Hopefully you enjoyed the ride. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video. Ta-ra!